We're back with another episode of Mac Stories Unwind, the show that's all about the picks. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's Friday, and I'm drinking iced coffee. I bet you don't even know what iced coffee is, Federico.
Iced coffee. Is it like espresso that you put in a freezer?
It's kind of close to that. Not in a freezer, but, so you can make iced coffee at home by just brewing a cup of coffee, brewing a pot of coffee and pouring it over ice. It's good to let it cool down. But if you get good iced coffee, you go to a coffee shop and they actually make the iced coffee a little differently. They make it's more like espresso. They've kind of made it a richer, denser brew than just a usual pour over or, drip coffee, because you're putting it on ice and it'll eventually start diluting the flavor of the coffee. So you've got a pretty thick coffee that you pour over it. I actually, the iced coffee that I have, I bought in a jug at the grocery store. I went to the supermarket.
Of coffee.
And just like you buy, a quart of milk, I bought a quart of coffee that it's been sitting in my refrigerator, and now I'm drinking it over ice.
This is so foreign to me.
I know. That's why I brought it up. I thought you'd like this. I mean, can you imagine?
A jug of coffee.
A jug. I guess, it's a big plastic bottle.
Like the supermarket, like a big...
Yeah, like 2 liter.
Who made that coffee?
I don't remember the name of the company. It's like a 2 liter bottle. There's a bunch of companies that make it. And you can just store it in your fridge, just like you would a gallon of milk or whatever it is.
This is we're gonna have to.
I don't do this often, but the other day I was at the grocery store. It was hot out, and I wanted some coffee.
We're gonna have to talk about this. Something so uniquely American is also like something that I see in the movies all the time.
Yeah,
it's like buying. You guys buy milk in those like plastic jugs, whatever, like huge plastic bottles, and there's milk.
Where do you buy it in?
Like a carton of milk.
Oh yeah, well we have cartons too. I have a carton of milk in my refrigerator.
But because you're in America, you also have the huge plastic tanks or whatever.
I do. I've got a big plastic thing of coffee in my refrigerator, which is not common for me. But I thought I had to mention it because I had a feeling that you would not be familiar with this sort of thing.
I am not. In any case, I got a couple of picks for you. Totally unrelated picks. First one is a hardware one. I mentioned this in passing before, but I've been using the Logitech Lift vertical mouse. So this has fixed this. So because I really needed to have a keyboard and mouse that would switch between multiple machines, right? Gaming PC, MacBook Air, and iPad Pro. And I needed to have something with support for multiple devices. Ideally, I will use an Apple Magic Keyboard and Magic Trackpad for this. But those devices, they do not support like Bluetooth multi-point, whatever it's called, like multi-pairing with different devices. Mm-hmm. Ideally, I would very much prefer a Magic Keyboard and a trackpad because I really like a good trackpad like the one that Apple makes. But I needed to use a mouse, and Logitech, they make devices that can switch with the press of a button between multiple machines. And so I was trying to use the MX Master mouse, but I used it for like a couple of weeks, and my right hand was feeling terrible after a while.
Really? Yes. I'm surprised. I actually use that mouse because I find it comfortable.
Well, I think it's the way that I place my hand on a traditional mouse. Eventually, I start having this terrible wrist pain, like
that's not good.
Carpal tunnel, whatever pain.
Sure.
It's terrible. It was terrible. And I'm very sensitive to this sort of stuff because then I get scared that I will be unable to write for a few days.
Sure, yeah.
And obviously that is not ideal. So a bunch of people said, yeah, you should get a vertical mouse. I was like, okay, you know what, whatever. Worst case scenario, I'm going to return these on Amazon. So I gave it a try, and my word, is it better for me? Like at a physical level, it's so much better. I think it all comes down to the way I rest my thumb and my hand in a different orientation on this mouse, because it's a vertical mouse. So my hand also rests in a vertical orientation on it.
Is it kind of like almost like a handshake kind of gesture?
Yes, it is kind of like a handshake gesture. Thumb on the left side of the mouse, and my 4 other fingers on the right side, controlling the 2 buttons and the click wheel. It's so much better. It looks nice as an object. It's got this nice gray, grippy texture, and the rest of the accessory is white. It's got the buttons to switch between machines at the bottom. Just press them and you switch between 3 inputs. And no wrist pain whatsoever. I can use it for hours at a time, like I've been doing this week for Automation April and SGPT, and no pain. Like, it's perfect. I love it. And even better is that using the Logi options. I think now they have Logi Options Plus. I don't know why I have the Logi Options Plus. I don't know why it's called Plus. It used to be called Logi Options.
There's a reason for Plus. I think Plus came along with either the Apple Silicon Macs, or I think it was the Apple Silicon Macs, or Universal Control kind of required it. There were some changes in Mac OS that kind of required Logitech to update their controller software.
Oh, very nice. So in any case, I use the Logi Options Plus software to remap the 2 context buttons on the left side of the mouse.
The ones right under the horizontal scroll wheel.
No, the ones under my thumb.
You probably don't have a horizontal scroll wheel.
No, I do not. The ones under my thumb. For example, I remapped one of them and we're going to talk about this on app stories in the near future, but I'm using this multitasking utility on macOS called Lasso, like Ted. It's called Lasso, and it lets you, it's difficult to explain on a podcast, but it basically lets you resize the frontmost window by drawing the area you want the window to occupy on screen. And it's very intuitive. You can create presets, but you can also just press a button. Then you get a little preview of your desktop underneath the mouse cursor. And then you just click and hold down, draw the area, and the window gets that shape. It's very nicely done. And it's one click away now, thanks to the Logi Lift mouse. I love it. Second pick, totally unrelated. It's a video game. I haven't spent a lot of time playing with this. I'm about an hour into the game. It's called Chia. That's TCHIA, Chia. And it's this game that is available on PlayStation, but it's also on PC. But for now, it's exclusive to the Epic Game Store. I've been playing on PC with my gaming PC, and it's like $30 or something. It's this indie game, and it's sort of inspired by Breath of the Wild. You are exploring this beautiful tropical open world, controlling this character. She's named a young girl named Chia. And what I love about this game, besides the graphics and just the setting and the colors, is that it's inspired by a culture that is totally new to me. So this game is also helping me learn more about this culture of New Caledonia, which is this archipelago in the, I want to say, Pacific Ocean. Let me get this.
I can't help you with that.
So New Caledonia is let's see, in the Southwest Pacific Ocean. It's basically east of Australia and New Zealand, and it's an archipelago of islands, and it's got this rich culture and history of this, these people that have been living there for a really long time and have their own customs, and it's sort of a you may think it's kind of similar to Polynesian culture, but it's different in a lot of ways. And I've been doing a lot of reading on Wikipedia, so pardon me if I'm getting the details wrong about this, but everything about this game is so lovely. The developers, the company, the indie studio that really wanted to celebrate the New Caledonian culture, they're called Awaseb. Again, my apologies if I'm pronouncing this wrong. And you're controlling this young girl who's on a mission to rescue her father, who gets kidnapped by some kind of organization at the beginning of the game. This game is beautiful. Like, it's absolutely stunning to look at. Go take a look at some videos. And it's inspired by Breath of the Wild in the sense that you're right from the get-go, from the onboarding tutorial, and right at the beginning of the game, you have total control over what you can do. You can, like in Breath of the Wild, you can glide. You have a glider made out of palm leaves, and it's like the best way to describe this is like a tropical sandbox open world. And very early on in the game, it's revealed that you as Chia can take control of other creatures and objects. So that's a really nice mechanic in which, for example, you can take control of a seagull, for example, and explore around. Or you can take control of a knife and do things with that. And you have a slingshot that allows you to interact with a lot of elements and objects in the world. And there's a story, there's a lot of ukulele-based music. And I gotta tell you, some of the best rhythmic game sort of mechanics that I've ever seen in a video game are in Chia. There was this segment where I needed to play guitar, or I guess ukulele, with another character who was playing a song on an acoustic guitar, and I was controlling Chia, and I was sort of strumming along on the ukulele, and it was so nicely done. There was this radial menu where I needed to hit specific chords, and just the way that works with the joystick and pressing a button at a specific time, in time with the music, so intuitive. And it was also actually teaching me about the chords that were being used in the song. So there's a lot of music elements in this game, but it's just, again, it's so... The sandbox, I think it's one of the few games that are really following in the footsteps of Breath of the Wild in terms of giving you a bunch of tools and then saying, here you go, here's a sandbox for you. I highly recommend, you can glide, you can swim, you can jump around, you can sail on a boat, you can go underwater, you can take control of any animal or object you can find, you can play the ukulele, and everything is just so lovely. Everything just so accessible and presented in a loving, kind way. So if you're looking for this kind of colorful game with a story, with a physics-driven sandbox that is inspired by Breath of the Wild, with a sort of this coming-of-age story that takes place in a setting with a culture that you're not familiar with, which is New Caledonia, go take a look at this one. It's on PlayStation and PC. It's coming to Steam, but right now it's only on the Epic Game Store.
Okay, that sounds really neat. I like the sound of that a lot.
I think this is a nice game for you to, unwind at the end of the day. I think you're gonna like this one.
Yeah, and warm up for Tears of the Kingdom, which will be out, just like a month now.
Oh man,
right?
I can't die. Oh my god, yes.
I almost thought we should do an entire episode on nothing but the last trailer, because that last trailer completely blew my mind. I was really excited, John, after watching that.
I have so many thoughts. We're gonna have to talk about this.
I know you do. This podcast is too short for all those thoughts, I think. Wow. Okay, well, look, here's my pick. John Wick 4.
I mean, yes, right there. That's the pick. John Wick 4. Give me some Keanu Reeves. I love this. Okay.
All right. You would love this movie because...
I love John Wick. Yes.
Okay. Nice. Well, this is kind of John Wick as James Bond in a video game is how I would describe it. All right. Because, John Wick has not always taken place in a wide... on a wide stage. It's been a lot of time, some of the earlier movies were set in places like New York. He's all over the world. It starts in Osaka, Japan, and he's visiting, where the last movie ended, he was still being hunted by the High Table, that he was a wanted man. And so it picks up where that leaves off, which is this entire underworld subculture of villains and criminals is looking for John Wick because he has a price on his head, because he's crossed the High Table. And even actually before, I should back up a second, because even before they get to Japan, he is riding a horse across the desert in I guess Saudi Arabia or someplace like that. I don't think it really tells you exactly where it is, hunting down one of the members of the High Table. And that's how it opens. So in this movie, you've got John Wick on horses, you've got John Wick in fast cars, you've got John Wick, blowing things up, and it's the usual thing, right? And with Keanu Reeves, I would say, one of the things I saw was a calculation of how many dollars per line of dialogue Keanu Reeves got for this, which was pretty high, because I'd say about 50% of the lines are just, yeah, That's what he said. He goes, yeah. And that's the right. There's there's not a lot of dialogue, maybe to a fault to a degree, to the development of a backstory. But this movie is so much fun. I went and saw it with my son Calvin while he was home on spring break a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the first weekend. And, brace yourself, because it's a very long movie. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes long. But it really didn't seem like that. I mean, it is one long action scene. And, the reason I say it's a little bit like James Bond is because he's flying all over the world. As I said, one of the early scenes is in Japan, where he's visiting his friend, who then he's discovered there. And there's a big fight with katanas and their Japanese assassins after him. And then there's another part of the movie that's set in Paris, where he's driving around the Champs-Élysées. And so it's in Paris, it's in New York, it's in a bunch of different places. And it has a video game vibe to it, because it very much feels like you're working your way through levels towards a boss fight at the end. And the boss fight at the end here is really good. There's a twist, and it's all the plot, to the extent that there is really a plot, is, again, John Wick is being hunted. He's trying to find his way out of this world. What he has to do that is go up against a guy who's the Marquis, who's a French guy who is now kind of one of the leaders of the high table, and keeps upping the ante on John Wick's head. And it becomes a very personal battle between the two of them. And it ends with a big crescendo where they face off at the end. And I don't want to give away too much, but the action here is just like fantastic. And I think this is, I've seen all these movies. Some of them are a little uneven. I think that the way this was filmed really gives it a great vibe and makes it exciting and keeps the pacing up despite the length of the movie, to where, I finished watching it and I couldn't believe that it had been almost 3 hours and I'd been sitting in a theater. It was just such a good fun movie, and a great escapist type of thing to end up a week with. It is long though, so maybe don't do it on the best weather day, whether it's a nice sunny Saturday afternoon. Don't do that. Wait till a rainy day or go in the evening or something. But I highly recommend checking this one out. All right, Federico, that's it for this week's episode of Mac Stories Unwind. You can find the two of us over on Mastodon. Just go to vitici.macstories.net or johnvorhees.macstories.net to find a place where you can follow us. Those are our profile pages on Mastodon with our own little Mac Stories server. You can also find us on Instagram, where Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.